Hello, my name is Edgar Rashett Perlman, and welcome to the Serious Talk podcast. Today, our topic of discussion is: will the United States help Ohio? I know it's a pretty broad question, and it arises even more questions to the people listening right now. But what I am talking about specifically is what has been happening in East Palestine, Ohio. To start off, on December 1st, 2022, a bill is passed that affected our railroad workers. And what this bill entails is a 24% pay increase over 5 years from 2020 to 2024, immediate payouts averaging $11,000 upon ratification, and an extra paid day off. That just sounds very great and lovely for our railroad workers. But it's not all they asked for. Now, although this is beneficial for the railroad workers, it does not solve the problem they presented in the first place. They couldn't get paid sick days off, and if they were sick, they had to call in advance before they even knew they were going to be sick in order to get the sick days off. They wanted 7 days of paid sick leave, but it was rejected in the Senate by a 52 to 43 vote. And the working conditions have been and still are very poor for these railroad workers. And I quote a statement from the railroad union saying, "Our members are forced to work more hours, have less stability, suffer more stress, and receive less rest. The ask for sick leave was not out of preference, but rather out of necessity." The union said, "No American worker should ever have to face the decision of going to work sick, fatigued, or mentally unwell versus getting disciplined or being fired by their employer. Yet, that is exactly what is happening every single day on the nation's largest freight railroads." Some of you may be asking, why is it so important for the 7 days of paid sick leave to be included in the bill? Each train company has their own set of rules that they can implement for their employees, which means that if there's no law saying they can't do something specific, like give their employees 7 days of paid sick leave, that means they can implement their own sick leave days and their own policies for it. One train company, specifically Norfolk, their policy allows employees to take 4 paid sick days a year and removes a stipulation in worker contracts that requires them to give their supervisors 48 hours notice before taking personal days. It's a pretty weird policy. You get 4 sick days a year, and some companies allow you to be absent for 4 days as soon as you get sick without even questioning it, which is what should happen, but is not happening. And as a result of this, Norfolk had a train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, that was carrying a very toxic chemical called vinyl chloride. A lot of you are not familiar with vinyl chloride, as I wasn't when it first happened and I first heard the name, because it's not something that people really think about, because it was banned in the United States in 1974 as an aerosol. On August 16th, 1974, vinyl chloride was banned in aerosols in the United States. And I quote the Consumer Product Safety Commission, "Vinyl chloride has been linked by scientific studies and clinical reports to a rare form of liver cancer, and there is no known safe exposure level." Keep in mind that they banned this chemical in 1974, but a train was carrying it in Ohio. Now, I want to make it clear that it was not banned, vinyl chloride was not banned as a whole, which means that the chemical is still used in certain products, but not in aerosols. which, if you don't know what an aerosol is something like spray paint, regular paint, something that can be sprayed in the air pretty much. But why is this important that it was banned as an aerosol? Since the train derailed, it had a bunch of vinyl chloride all over the ground. And instead of letting the vinyl chloride seep into the ground and affect the water table that is in East Palestine, a local fire chief instead decided to light it all on fire, which is literally the banned form of vinyl chloride in the United States. I'm about to quote a spokesperson with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. EPA did not order the controlled burn. The local fire chief was the incident commander who made the decision in consultation with Norfolk Southern local law enforcement and response officials from Ohio, the EPA spokesperson said. So, a local fire chief with no knowledge of what vinyl chloride is worked in collaboration with others with also no knowledge of what vinyl chloride is, and they thought the best thing to do was to light it on fire and put it in the air. That puts tons of people at risk. And as I said before, there is no known safe exposure level. And this was a catastrophic level of vinyl chloride in the air. It looked as if there were rain clouds about to rain over East Palestine. But they were not rain clouds. They were, in fact, vinyl chloride clouds. And people were inhaling it. And what law enforcement decided to do was that people can stay there as long as they were 2 miles away from the controlled burn. Which just is the best plan I've ever heard in my life, I think. There's no known safe exposure level, and they're like, yep, it's completely covered the sky in East Palestine. You cannot see up. Yeah, you only need to be 2 miles away. That's it. And from all the damages that Norfolk Train Company has caused, the company pledged $6.5 million in compensation and financial assistance for local residents following the crash, and is complying with orders from the Environmental Protection Agency to pay for the cleanup. $6.5 million. Isn't that something? That sounds like such a large amount of money. Not really. That is pretty much nothing. They are paying nothing to the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, for pretty much giving them all a rare form of liver cancer and putting them all at risk. And instead, they want to risk the lives of Americans in East Palestine, Ohio, then pay and give railroad workers sick days off, paid sick days off. If conditions were better for railroad workers, this whole event could have been avoided and maybe even never happen again. I think that the United States honestly is trying to help East Palestine, Ohio, but they're doing a very lousy job at it. $6.5 million is not enough. They need to be able to relocate everybody in East Palestine, Ohio, until it is safe and there's no more vinyl chloride in the air. Because it was banned in 1974, but yet the banned form is everywhere in East Palestine, Ohio, which is absurd. So, I hope you learned something today. And I hope you learned that the government cannot be trusted. No, I'm just kidding. And that about wraps it up for this episode of the Serious Talk podcast. I hope the listeners are now more informed about what's going on in East Palestine and can be more conscientious about random things that are happening in the United States, such as railroad union bills trying to be passed. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their night, a good rest of the day, and thank you for listening.